The steam was still rising from the plate when I stepped inside, and that was the detail that broke something in me before I even understood what I was looking at. Not the smell of the hallway behind me, which was the smell every hallway had now. Iron and spoiled meat and something sweeter underneath that I had learned not to name. Not the dust on the welcome mat, thick enough that my boot left a clean print. It was the steam. Thin, uncertain, curling up from a bowl of what looked like lentil stew on a table set for two. And I stood in the doorway with my crowbar half raised and understood that whoever had cooked this meal had done it within the last 20 minutes. My name is Adrian Vale. I am 34 years old. I used to teach 8th grade history in a school that no longer exists, and I've been alive for 142 days since the sirens first went silent. I keep count because counting is one of the few honest things left. I write in a small green notebook I found in a pharmacy, and I make myself put down one true sentence every night before I sleep, because I promised someone I would, and because if I stop, I don't know what will remain of me. Behind me in the hall stood Miriam. She is 51, a former surgical nurse, and she is the reason I'm still breathing on more nights than I want to admit. She had her hand on the strap of her pack and her eyes on the stairwell we had just climbed. And when she saw me freeze, she did not ask why. She moved into the apartment with the flat, economical step of a woman who had learned to distrust every threshold. Behind her came Owen, 19, sunburnt across the bridge of his nose, still capable of the kind of hope that made me both grateful and afraid. He carried the shotgun we had agreed he would only use if I fell. "Adrian," Miriam said, and her voice was the calm voice she used when a thing was very wrong. "Step back from the table." I stepped back. I did not know why. I trusted her before I trusted myself. The apartment was on the 7th floor of a building on Kessler Avenue, a mid-rise the color of wet cardboard. And we had chosen it because the front door on the ground level had been welded shut from the inside. Welded, not barricaded, not chained. Someone with a torch and a plan had sealed that building against the world, and then, presumably, walked upstairs and locked their own front door as well. We had come in through a fire escape on the 4th floor, through a shattered kitchen window, and we had climbed 3 flights in almost total silence. And every apartment we passed had been open, ransacked, empty of anything but the sour ghost of the people who had lived in them. This one had been locked. This one had a deadbolt still turned. This one had 2 bowls of stew on a small round table and a chair pushed back like someone had stood up in a hurry, and the stew was still warm. "There's no one here," Owen whispered from the entryway. His voice had that thin quality it got when he was trying to convince himself of a thing. Miriam crouched by the doorframe and ran her gloved fingers along the lock. "Turned from the inside," she said. "Chain hooked. We broke the chain when we forced it." I remembered forcing it. I remembered the small metallic protest and the way my shoulder had absorbed the give of the wood. And I had not thought about what a hooked chain meant, because for 142 days, a locked door had only ever meant one thing, which was that whoever had lived here had died somewhere else. But a hooked chain meant the person who lived here had been home. A hooked chain meant they had been home tonight. I looked at the stew. I looked at the second chair, and the second bowl, and the 2 glasses of water beside them, and the folded napkins. And I understood, with a slow, cold understanding, that we had not entered an empty apartment. We had entered someone's home during dinner. "Owen," I said, and I kept my voice very low. "Close the door. Don't lock it. Just close it." He did. The click of the latch sounded enormous. Miriam had already drawn the small paring knife she carried at her hip. Not the machete on her back, but the knife, which was the one she used when she needed her hands to move faster than her thoughts. She was already checking the coat closet by the entryway, her body angled so that if something came out, she would be behind the door rather than in front of it. I watched her clear it with 2 efficient motions and shake her head at me. The apartment was small. A short hallway opened into a living room and kitchen sharing one space, with a wall of windows on the far side that had been covered from the inside with thick moving blankets, tacked into the plaster with what looked like framing nails. The blankets absorbed sound. That was why the room felt wrong even before I understood the details. That odd deadened quality of a space designed to swallow noise. 2 doors branched off the living room. One was ajar and looked into a bathroom. The other was closed. I stepped into the living space. There was a bookshelf against one wall, filled not with books but with cans, labels facing outward, sorted by category. Beans on one shelf, tomatoes on another, soups arranged by broth base. A hand-labeled cardboard sheet had been taped to the front of each shelf. The handwriting was careful, small, slightly slanted, the handwriting of someone who used to fill out forms professionally. On top of the shelf sat a battery-powered lantern, switched off, still warm to the back of my hand when I brushed it. I turned in place. Every surface in this apartment told me the same story. Someone had prepared for this. Someone had prepared for this a long time ago, before the sirens, before the first bulletins, before anyone we had known had understood that the word outbreak was not going to be filed away as a season and a scare. There were water jugs stacked against the interior wall, 6 of them, full. There was a small camp stove on the counter, cold now but with a faint smell of butane still rising from it. And on the little round table in the center of the room, 2 bowls of stew steaming. "They heard us?" Miriam said quietly. I looked at her. She had come to stand beside me. She did not look at the food. She looked at the closed door across the room. "They heard us on the fire escape," she said. "They had time to leave the table. They didn't have time to take the food. Or they didn't want to," Owen said. He had come up behind us, and his shotgun was pointed at the floor the way I had taught him. His face was pale under the sunburn. "Maybe they wanted us to find it. Maybe it's a trap." I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to tell him that after 142 days, I had developed a sense for these things. That traps had a smell to them. That a trap would have had a body in the doorway and a stack of medicine on the floor as bait. That a trap would have been obvious. But I had not developed a sense for these things. I had only developed a sense for the kinds of danger I had already survived. And every day, the world invented new ones. "We checked the closed room," I said. "Miriam left, me center, Owen behind me covering the front door. If it opens, we do not shoot. We speak first, understand?" Owen nodded. He was very good at nodding. He was very bad at speaking first. We crossed the room. Our boots on the wooden floor sounded like an announcement. I placed my hand on the doorknob and felt, through my glove, that it was warm. Not the warmth of a body. The warmth of a hand that had touched it moments ago and pulled it shut and let go. I turned the knob. The door opened onto a bedroom, and the bedroom was empty, and the window on the far wall was open, its curtain moving in a small, unhurried breath of night air. And beyond the window, a fire escape descended into a darkness I could not see the bottom of. They had left. They had left while we stood in their kitchen and looked at their dinner and tried to understand what kind of person had cooked it. Miriam moved to the window first, keeping low. And I watched her scan the fire escape with the kind of stillness that predators use. After a long moment, she pulled her head back inside and shook it once. Whoever had gone down that ladder was already past the third floor, or past the alley, or past whatever we could have seen. In a city without streetlights, a person 20 feet away might as well have been in another country. They knew this route, she said. They didn't hesitate. 2 of them, Owen said from the doorway. He was looking at the table. 2 bowls, 2 chairs, 2 glasses. Not necessarily, Miriam said. 1 person expecting company, or 1 person who eats twice. Or 2, Owen said stubbornly. And I understood then that he wanted there to be 2 of them, because 2 was a household, 2 was a family, 2 was something that had survived together, and Owen needed to believe in things that had survived together. His parents had not. His younger brother had not. On his best days, Owen was still trying to prove to the world that people did not have to lose everything. I closed the bedroom door behind us and turned back to the apartment. Now that the immediate fear had loosened its grip, I could see the space more clearly. The kitchen was small and clean. The countertop had been wiped. A single dishcloth hung over the faucet, damp. A knife block on the counter was missing 3 knives. On the wall above the sink, someone had taped a hand-drawn calendar, and each square had a tiny mark in one corner. I stepped closer to look at it. The marks were check marks, 1 per day, and they extended in an unbroken line from a date in early spring to yesterday. Yesterday had a check mark. Today did not. They had been here yesterday. They had woken up this morning and not yet marked the square, because marking it was probably an evening ritual, something they did after dinner. And dinner had been interrupted. I felt Miriam come up beside me. She had seen the calendar too. "Adrian," she said very quietly, "we should go." I knew she was right. I knew the correct decision was to gather what water and food we could carry in 10 minutes and be out of the building before whoever had lived here decided to come back and reclaim their home, which they had every right to reclaim, and which they might reclaim with violence if they had prepared this thoroughly and defended it this long. I knew all of that. I looked at the 2 bowls of stew, and I did not move. "Adrian," she said again. "They're going to freeze out there," I said. "Whoever they are. It's dropping tonight. There was frost on the fire escape when we came up. That's not our problem. They left because of us." She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "That is also not our problem. We didn't know they were here." "We know now." Owen had drifted into the living room and was standing over the table, looking down at the food with an expression I could not quite read. He was so young. I had been 34 when the sirens started, and Owen had been 18, and the 16 years between us felt sometimes like 16 decades. I had memories of a world he could only imagine. He had adjusted to this one faster than I had, in some ways, and in other ways, he had never adjusted at all. "There's a note," Owen said. I turned. "What?" "Under the bowl, on the far side of the table. There's a note." I crossed to the table. I bent down. There was a folded piece of paper tucked halfway under the second bowl, the one on the far chair. I had missed it because the bowl obscured most of it, and the folded edge was the same color as the tablecloth. I pulled it free with 2 fingers and unfolded it. The handwriting was the same careful, slightly slanted hand that had labeled the cans. It said, "If you are reading this, please do not follow us. There are 3 of you on the escape. We counted. The stew is safe. There's more in the pot. Please take it, and please leave by morning. We will not come back until we see you go." I read it twice. Then I read it a third time. My hands were not quite steady. "3 of us," Miriam said, reading over my shoulder. "They counted 3. "There are 3 of us," Owen said. "Yes," Miriam said. "But how did they know?" I looked up at the walls of the apartment as if they might answer, and in a way they did. Above the front door, in the corner near the ceiling, a small dark circle stared down at me. I had not seen it when we came in because I had been looking at the table. It was a camera, the kind of thing you could buy for $80 at any electronics store in the old world. A small wireless unit with a wide-angle lens. And it was pointed at the entryway, with the placid attention of a thing that did not need to blink. "Camera," I said. Miriam followed my gaze. Her face did not change. She had spent most of her adult life reading rooms for information other people missed. And I watched her cataloging the corners now, one by one. And I saw her find the second camera above the kitchen window, and the third at the top of the bookshelf, angled to see the front door from a different vector. "They watched us come in," Owen said. "They watched us try to eat their dinner," Miriam said. Her mouth had a small dry twist to it that I had learned to recognize as the closest thing she allowed herself to a smile these days. I set the note down. I sat, without really deciding to sit, in the chair that had been pulled back from the table. The wood was still warm from the person who had been sitting in it. I put my hands flat on the tablecloth, and I looked at the 2 bowls of stew, and I felt, for the first time, in a very long time, that I was inside another person's life. Not the wreckage of one, not the residue. The life itself, ongoing, interrupted for my sake. "They didn't run because they were afraid of us," I said slowly. "They ran because they didn't want to have to decide what to do about us." Miriam considered this. Possibly. They had time to grab a bag. They had time to close the window behind them, and they didn't. They wanted us to see the fire escape. They wanted us to know they were gone. "They wanted us to eat and leave," Owen said. He had picked up a spoon. He was not eating. He was just holding the spoon and looking at it, and I realized he had not held a piece of ordinary cutlery in months. We ate from cans, from foil pouches, from our hands. A silver spoon in a 19-year-old boy's fingers was a small archaeology of the world we had lost. "Owen," Miriam said gently, "put the spoon down." He did. "The stew could be poisoned," she said. She said it without heat, the way she said everything. "The note says it's safe. We don't know that." "Why poison strangers who might already leave?" I asked. "To be sure they leave," she said, "or to make sure they don't come back." I did not have an answer for that. I looked at the stew. I could smell it now that I was close. The deep vegetal warmth of lentils and something like cumin, and a base of what had probably been broth from a bouillon cube, because the world no longer made anything more sophisticated than that. It smelled like every kitchen I had ever loved. It smelled like my mother's stove in November. My eyes stung, and I looked away, because I had learned that certain kinds of tenderness were dangerous in this apartment, in this hour, in this century. "We're not eating it," I said, "but we're not throwing it out either. We're going to leave it exactly where it is." "Why?" Owen said. "Because they might come back tonight. And when they do, I want them to see that we didn't take what wasn't ours." Miriam looked at me for a long moment. I could not read her face. Then she nodded once and turned to check the cabinets. 10 minutes, she said. We take water. We take what dry goods will fit in our packs without unbalancing us. We leave the note where it is. We leave the stew where it is. And we go out the way we came, and we do not go down that fire escape. I agreed. 10 minutes. I looked at the camera in the corner one more time, and I raised my hand, palm open, in a gesture that could have meant many things. I hoped whoever was watching understood at least one of them. Then we moved. We were out of the apartment in 8 minutes. Miriam had a nurse's discipline about time and a nurse's discipline about weight. And she made me put back 2 cans of peaches I had wanted to take because peaches were heavy, and we did not need the calories that badly. Owen carried water. I carried a small bag of rice, 3 cans of black beans, a sealed pouch of powdered milk, and a book of matches that had been sitting on the counter unopened. I do not know why I took the matches. We had lighters, we had flint. I think I took them because someone had left them where they could be seen. And I did not want the person who had cooked our almost dinner to think we had missed anything they had offered. We did not go down the fire escape. We went back the way we had come, through the 4th floor window, and down through the interior stairwell, and out through a side door on the ground level that Miriam had scouted on our way in. The night outside was colder than it had been an hour ago. My breath made small ghosts in the air. The street was empty, in the way streets were always empty now, which was not truly empty, but empty of movement, empty of anything that would show itself, full of the sense that watching was happening somewhere just beyond the reach of your eyes. We moved 3 blocks east before we spoke. We need to talk about what just happened, Miriam said. Later, I said. Now. I stopped. We had ducked into the recessed doorway of what had once been a dry cleaner's. The plastic-wrapped shapes of forgotten clothes still hung in the window behind us, patient as mourners. They had cameras, Miriam said. They had a stocked pantry. They had a welded front door on their building. They had a fire escape route already planned. They had a written protocol for what to do if strangers came in. They wrote a note in advance, Adrian, or they wrote it very quickly. And either way, it means they had thought about this exact scenario. That is not 1 or 2 frightened people in an apartment. That is a household with structure. That is a household with rules. I know, I said. And they watched us. They watched us with cameras from wherever they went. Which means the cameras don't just record. They transmit. Which means there is a receiving device somewhere in this neighborhood, and a person to look at it, and possibly a network larger than the 2 of them. I know, I said again. My throat was dry. So the question, Miriam said, is why they ran instead of confronting us. Because everything else in that apartment suggests people who had prepared to defend it. Owen was quiet. He was looking down the street the way we had come. His hand kept touching the strap of the shotgun and then dropping away. Maybe they were afraid we were the bigger group, I said. Maybe they didn't want to test whether 3 strangers with weapons could be reasoned with. Maybe, Miriam said. She did not sound convinced. Or maybe they weren't the ones with the rules. Maybe they were the ones under them. I looked at her. The note said, "We will not come back until we see you go," she said. That's a strange phrasing. Not "we won't come back until you leave." Not "we'll return once you're gone." Until we see you go. As if seeing was the part that mattered. As if seeing was something they had to do because someone else had told them to. I thought about the check mark on the calendar. I thought about the careful handwriting. I thought about the 2 bowls, the 2 chairs, the household of 2 people, one of whom might have been the one who wrote notes, and one of whom might have been the one who decided when they were written. You think there's a third person, I said. I think there are more than 2 people involved in that apartment, Miriam said. I don't know how many, I don't know where, but I don't think we've met all of them. Down the street, somewhere in the block behind us, a metal shutter rattled. It could have been wind. It could have been anything. We all heard it. None of us moved. We need to sleep somewhere else tonight, Miriam said. And we need to be gone from this district by morning. I nodded. But I looked back at the building we had just left. 7 stories of dark windows and 1 apartment with 2 bowls of cooling stew on a table. And I did not want to leave. Not because I trusted the person who had written the note. Because I did not want to be the kind of man who could not tell the difference between an invitation and a warning. We spent the night in a mechanic's garage 2 blocks south. The kind of squat brick building with a corrugated roll-up door that had been left half-raised. We ducked under the door and pulled it down behind us, and I braced it with a length of rebar we found near the workbench. The inside smelled of old motor oil and rat droppings and rain that had come in through the roof at some earlier point and dried into the concrete. There was a car in one of the 2 bays, up on the lift, hood open, a mechanic's project abandoned mid-thought. On the bench, someone had left a coffee mug that still had a dried brown ring at the bottom. We took turns sleeping. Miriam took first watch because she always did. And Owen and I laid our bedrolls behind the workbench where we would be hard to see from the front door if anyone forced it. I did not think I would sleep. I lay on my back and looked up at the corrugated roof and listened to Miriam's small movements at the front of the garage. And I thought about the person who had written that note. They had counted 3 of us. They had known we were on the fire escape. They had watched us on their cameras, and they had known we were strangers, and they had chosen to leave rather than to hide. And they had left food behind because they believed we might need it, and they had asked us not to follow. I had not lived in a world where any of that made sense for a very long time. For 142 days, the rule had been simple. There were 3 kinds of people left. There were the infected, and you avoided them. And if you could not avoid them, you ended them. There were survivors like us, and you avoided them too. Because survivors were mostly desperate. And desperate people had done things to me and to Miriam and to Owen that I did not write about in the green notebook. And then there were the 3rd kind, the organized kind, the groups that had consolidated in the first 2 months and now controlled blocks, districts, sometimes whole neighborhoods. The 3rd kind were the most dangerous. Because the 3rd kind had made decisions about how the new world would work, and those decisions did not include us. The people in the apartment had felt like a 4th kind, and I did not know what a 4th kind meant. I was still awake when Miriam came to trade places. She knelt beside me and put a hand on my shoulder. "You didn't sleep," she said. "No." "Then don't watch. Owen can take next. I'll sit with you." She sat down on the concrete beside my bedroll and leaned her back against the workbench. In the thin light coming through a gap in the roof, I could see her face in profile, the deep lines at the corner of her mouth, the way her hair had gone entirely gray in the past 3 months. She had been dyeing it before. She had told me that once, in a moment of tiredness, as if it embarrassed her. She had told me she had been vain about her hair, and now she was ashamed to have been vain about anything. "I keep thinking about the calendar," I said. "Which part?" "How steady the marks were. Same corner, same size, every day for months. It's a person who needs the ritual to keep going. It's a person who's holding themselves together with the ritual." Miriam was quiet for a while. Then she said, I had a patient once, a very long time ago, who came in for what he thought was a heart attack, and it turned out to be a panic disorder. He had been managing it for 11 years without medication by making his bed the same way every morning. Hospital corners, precise fold. He told me if he skipped a day, he could not leave the house. I asked him what he was afraid of, and he said, "I am afraid I will find out I never needed to be afraid." I turned my head to look at her. "Why are you telling me that?" "Because," she said, "the person who checked that calendar every night is not the person we should be afraid of." "Then who?" She did not answer. She sat with her hand loosely holding the small paring knife. And she looked at the door of the garage, and she said, "Sleep, Adrian. I'll wake you if I hear anything." I slept. I did not dream, or if I did, the dream did not survive the waking. I woke to the sound of Owen's voice, low and careful, saying my name. It was still dark. He was crouched beside me with his hand on my shoulder, and his face in the almost light was tight in a way that meant something was wrong, but not yet catastrophic. "There's someone at the door," he whispered. I sat up. I did not reach for the crowbar yet. Miriam was already at the front of the garage, pressed against the wall beside the roll-up door, her ear near the metal. She saw me and held up 2 fingers. 2 people. I moved to her. Owen came behind me, shotgun up but not shouldered. Through the metal, I could hear them clearly. They were not trying to be quiet. That was the first thing that struck me. They were talking to each other in low voices, the way you talk to a companion in the dark when you did not want to shout, but you did not think anyone was listening. The voices were both young, both female. One was doing most of the talking. "Not this one. The door's braced. See the bar? Someone's in there." "Then we skip it." "We don't skip it. We knock." "You knock. I'll wait across the street." Coward. Cautious. There was a pause, then a soft, deliberate knock on the metal door. 3 taps, then, after a beat, 2 more. Then silence. Miriam's head turned very slightly toward me. Her eyes asked a question I did not know how to answer. The voice on the other side spoke again, closer now, mouth near the door. "Hello in there. We're not going to hurt you. We saw you go into the building on Kessler last night. We saw you come out. We saw where you went. We are not from that building. We are not with the people from that building. We would like to talk to you. If you want to talk, knock twice. If you don't want to talk, knock once. And we will leave, and we will not come back. And we will not tell anyone we saw you. That is a promise." Miriam looked at me. Owen looked at me. My hand was on the rebar bracing the door, and I could feel the small vibration of the world through it, the vibration of every choice I had made in the last 4 months compressed into the flat metal beneath my palm. I thought about the note. I thought about the check marks on the calendar. I thought about how the person outside had said we saw where you went, and how that meant we had been followed, and how being followed for 2 blocks in this city was not something amateurs did, and how amateurs did not knock in patterns. I thought about Miriam's story about the man who made his bed with hospital corners. I knocked twice. Miriam closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she nodded and drew her paring knife and stepped to the far side of the door, where she would be behind it when it opened. "Thank you," said the voice outside. "We're going to come in slowly. We have weapons, but we are not going to draw them. If you want us to stop, say stop. My name is Rhea. My friend is Coralie. We're both 19. We are alone." 19, Owen breathed beside me. He said it like a spell. "Stop," I said before Rhea could open the door. "Before you come in. Tell me why you followed us." There was a pause, then Rhea's voice closer. "Because you didn't eat the stew," she said. "And we needed to know what kind of people don't eat the stew." I looked at Miriam. Miriam did not look at me. She was watching the door. "Come in slow," I said. "Hands where I can see them. My friend has a shotgun. He is 19 also. He is not going to shoot you, but if you move fast, he will." The rebar rattled softly as I lifted it out of its brace. I raised the roll-up door just far enough for 2 people to duck under. 2 figures came in low, hands empty and open. They straightened up on the other side, and I lowered the door behind them. And for the first time in my new life, I stood face to face with the people who had watched us on their cameras, and decided, for reasons of their own, that we deserved to know their names. Rhea was tall, thin, with dark hair cut short and unevenly, as if she had done it herself with kitchen scissors and a hand mirror. She wore a canvas jacket 2 sizes too large, and a scarf wrapped around her neck in a complicated way that I suspected doubled as a weapon or a bandage, depending on need. Coralie was smaller, softer in the face, with a heavy braid and glasses that were held together at one hinge with what looked like a twist of copper wire. They did not look like people who had welded a door shut and stocked a pantry and installed a camera network. They looked, in the honest light of my flashlight held low, like the children of the people who had done those things. "Where are your parents?" I said. I did not mean to say it. It came out before I could stop it. Rhea looked at me steadily. "My mother is at the apartment. She's the one who wrote the note. She's the one who cooks the stew." "And your father?" "I don't have one. Not anymore." I glanced at Coralie. "You?" "My family is not there," Coralie said quietly. "I've been with Rhea's mother since October." Miriam had come out from behind the door. She was still holding the knife, but low, and her posture had shifted into the careful neutrality she used with patients whose diagnoses she had not yet decided on. "Sit down, both of you," Miriam said, "against that wall. Owen, keep the shotgun on the door, not on them. Adrian, I want to know why we're worth following." Rhea and Coralie sat obediently. They sat close together, shoulders touching, and Coralie's hand crept into Rhea's and stayed there. That, more than anything else, unwound something in my chest that had been wound very tight since we entered the apartment last night. I could not have said why. Perhaps because I had spent so long forgetting that people still held each other's hands. "You want to know why we followed you?" Rhea said. "It's simple. My mother has been feeding strangers for 3 months. She leaves food out where she thinks people will find it. She's fed maybe 20 people since the building was sealed. 19 of them ate the food and took what wasn't offered. Cans off the shelf, water jugs. 1 person took the lantern. My mother replaced everything and kept feeding people, because she believes it's the only thing keeping her a person. But one of them, back in September, took Coralie's little brother. Just picked him up on the way out. He was 4. We never found him." Coralie's hand tightened on Rhea's. She did not look up. "So my mother started writing notes," Rhea said, "and she started counting. And she started asking me and Coralie to watch the ones who came in to see what they did. She said she wanted to know if any of them would leave the food alone. She said if we ever found one, she wanted to know." "And we didn't eat it," I said. "You didn't eat it," Rhea agreed. "You didn't take the peaches. You didn't take the lantern. Your friend picked up a spoon and put it down. You waved at the camera before you left. That was you watching us. That was me and Coralie. My mother doesn't watch the feed anymore. She says it hurts too much when they take things. We watch, and we tell her only what she needs to know." Miriam had gone very still. "Rhea," she said, How old are you actually? Rhea hesitated. Then she said, 17. Coralie is 16. You said 19 at the door. People take you more seriously at 19. Miriam's face did something complicated. And your mother sent 2 teenage girls into a dark city at 4 in the morning to follow armed strangers. My mother did not send us, Rhea said. Her voice was steady. My mother told us to stay in the apartment. Coralie and I climbed down the fire escape after her. And then we went a different direction. She thinks we're at a safe house 6 blocks north. She's going to be very angry when she finds out. Then why are you here? I asked. Rhea looked at me. Her eyes in the flashlight were the color of very old tea. Because there is a group in this district, she said, that is coming for our building on Sunday. And my mother thinks she can talk to them. And she can't. And we thought, if there were 3 people who didn't eat the stew, maybe they were the kind of people who might help us convince her to leave. Sunday was tomorrow. I did not answer Rhea right away. I sat down on an overturned oil drum across from the 2 girls, and I set the crowbar across my knees, and I let my breathing slow. Miriam had moved to lean against the workbench, and Owen had lowered the shotgun to a diagonal across his chest, which for him meant he was listening more than watching. The garage smelled of engine and dust and the faint, sharp mineral of the winter that was coming. I could hear the wind against the metal door. Tell me about the group, I said. Rhea nodded. She had been ready for the question. They call themselves the Register. I don't know if that's what they call themselves or what other people call them. They came into this district in July. They took the school first, the middle school on Bergen, because it had generators and a fenced yard. Then they took the fire station. Then they started going block by block. What they do is, they knock on doors. They knock politely. They ask what you have. They ask how many people are with you. They write it down in a book. And then they tell you what percentage of what you have they're going to take, and how many of your people are going to work for them and where. And then they leave, and they come back in a week to collect. And if you don't comply, they come back with more people, Coralie said without looking up. And they take everything, and they take the people too. Have you seen this happen? We saw the Nasser family, Rhea said, 2 doors down from our building. They said no. The Register came back 3 days later with 8 men and a truck. They emptied the apartment. The family there were 5 of them they left with the truck. I don't know where. My mother watched from the roof. How did your building avoid them so long? The welded door, Rhea said. They can't get in through the front. They tried once in August. They had a crowbar and a sledgehammer, and they made a lot of noise, and they gave up after 20 minutes because the door held. But they came back last week with a torch. They said if the door wasn't opened by Sunday morning, they would cut through it. And they left a paper on the door with a list of what they wanted. How did they know what was in your building? Rhea looked at Coralie. Coralie looked at the floor. Coralie was captured for a week in October, Rhea said quietly. That's when we lost her brother. She got away. She came to our building because my mother had fed her once at the drop point in the alley. They asked her questions before she got out. She told them things because they were hurting her. She's told my mother the things she told them. My mother has forgiven her. Coralie has not forgiven herself. I looked at Coralie. She was very still. Her braid had come slightly loose over her shoulder, and I could see her jaw working. Coralie, I said, you did what you had to do to survive. Nobody who has survived this long has done it without becoming at some point a person they didn't want to be. She did not look up, but her shoulders eased a little. Miriam spoke. "Rhea, what do you want from us?" Rhea took a breath. She was clearly practiced at this. She had thought about the words in the walk over. "My mother won't leave the building," she said. "It's the last thing she has of my father. He built the pantry. He welded the door. He installed the cameras. He died in April, and she has not left the apartment since June. If the register comes on Sunday, she will open the door. She will try to talk. She will offer them food, and they will kill her, or they will take her. And either way, she is gone. But if 3 strangers who did not eat her stew came to the door tonight and told her that they knew about the register, and told her that they had a place she could go, and told her they would help her carry the pantry, I think she would go. I think she would go for you." "Why us?" I said. "Because she has been looking for people who wouldn't take the stew for 3 months," Rhea said. "Because you are the answer to a prayer she stopped saying out loud a long time ago." There was a silence. Owen was looking at me. Miriam was looking at me. Coralie was still not looking at anything. "We don't have a place," Miriam said. "You understand that. We aren't a group. We are 3 people who have been moving for months. We don't have a base. We don't have supplies for 4 more people. We don't have—" "You have each other," Rhea said. "That's more than most people have. My mother doesn't need a fortress. She needs someone to give her permission to leave." I looked at Miriam. Miriam did not look at me. She was looking at Coralie's braid. We did not agree that night. Miriam said we needed to talk alone, and Rhea said she and Coralie would wait outside the garage, and I said no. They would wait inside, in the far bay behind the lifted car, and we would talk quietly in the office at the back. Rhea did not argue. She and Coralie moved to the far bay and sat down against the concrete wall. And Coralie leaned her head against Rhea's shoulder. And within 2 minutes, Coralie was asleep, which told me more about how tired they were than anything Rhea had said with her mouth. The office was a small glass-walled cubicle at the back of the garage, with a desk covered in old invoices and a wall calendar from a year that had already ended. Miriam closed the door behind us, and the 3 of us stood in the small space, and I could smell that we all needed to bathe. "We can't do this," Miriam said. "I know," I said. "I'm saying it anyway. We cannot take on 3 more people. We cannot walk into a building that is going to be attacked tomorrow. We cannot make ourselves the answer to that woman's prayer. Adrian, listen to me. We have survived because we are small. We have survived because we move. We have survived because we do not take on obligations we cannot meet. If we go to that apartment tonight, and we convince the mother to leave, and we lead her out into a city where we do not have a safe place, we are going to lose her, and probably one of us, within a week." "I know," I said again. "Then say the words." I looked at the calendar on the wall. It was from a stationery company. The picture at the top was of a lake at sunset, taken in a country I would never see now. The month showing was August. Someone had circled a date in red with a small note, Kayla's wedding. I did not know if Kayla had had her wedding. I did not know if Kayla was alive. I did not know if the person who had circled the date had lived long enough to attend. "Miriam," I said, "for 4 months we have been making the correct choice, every day. Do you know what the correct choice has done for me? It has kept me alive. It has not kept me a person. There is a difference. I have been feeling the difference for a long time, and I don't know how much longer I can stand it." She did not answer. "I am not saying we have to save them," I said. "I am saying we have to try. I am saying if we do not try, then when we die in this city, and we will die in this city, Miriam, one of us or all of us. Sooner than we think I want to die, having tried at least once to be the kind of person who deserves the food a stranger left on a table. Miriam turned her back to me. She stood looking out at the garage floor through the office window. I could see Owen at the workbench, checking his shotgun for the 5th time that hour. I could see the 2 dark shapes of the girls in the far bay. "You are asking me," she said without turning, "to break my only rule." I know. My only rule is that we do not add. We survived losing Daniel because we did not immediately try to replace him. We survived losing Inez because we did not open our group. Every group that has added members in this city has become a target. You know this. You have said it to me. I know. She turned. Her face was tired, not angry. Tired in a way that went all the way down to the bones. "If we do this," she said, "we do it my way. We go tonight. We go now, while it is still dark and the register is not yet moving. We talk to the mother. We do not promise her a place. We tell her what we can offer, which is help getting out of this district by dawn, and nothing else. We do not carry her pantry. We carry what she can carry herself, and what we can carry without slowing down. We do not take the cameras. We do not take the lantern. If she will not leave without those things, we go without her. Do you understand? We go without her." "Yes. And Adrian." Her voice had dropped very low. "If it goes wrong at the apartment, if the register is there, if there is any sign we have walked into a situation we cannot walk out of, we leave the girls, we leave the mother, we leave all of them. We go, and we do not look back, because we are not saviors, and we cannot become saviors in a night. Do you understand?" "Yes," I said. "Say it. If it goes wrong, we leave them." "Say it like you mean it." I closed my eyes. "If it goes wrong, we leave them." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she opened the office door. "Owen," she called quietly, "wake the girls. We're going back." We moved in a formation Miriam had drilled into us over months, though we had never used it with 5 people. Rhea took point because she knew the streets. Coralie walked with her, close, because Coralie had been captured once and would not walk at the back of a group after dark, and no one asked her to. Owen and I flanked the middle, and Miriam brought up the rear, which was where she always was. Because Miriam had decided a long time ago that if anyone was going to be picked off from behind, it was going to be her. The walk back to Kessler Avenue took 19 minutes. In that time, we passed 3 infected, all at a distance. One was standing in the middle of an intersection 2 blocks away, motionless, its head slightly tilted, as if listening for a sound it had heard once and was waiting to hear again. One was inside a storefront, and we saw only its silhouette against the pale gray of pre-dawn glass. The third we heard but did not see. A slow, dry scraping down an alley we did not enter. Rhea knew the routes. She took us through a gap in a chain-link fence, across the back of a parking lot, through a service alley behind what had once been a pharmacy, and up a set of exterior concrete stairs to a loading dock at the back of the building on Kessler. The loading dock door had been sealed with a metal plate, but there was a small hatch cut into the plate, chest high, with a piece of plywood covering it from the inside. Rhea knocked. 3 taps, then 2, then 1. The plywood moved. A face appeared behind it. A woman's face, 45 or 50, with hair the color of pale straw and eyes the same color, and a small tight mouth that opened when she saw her daughter, and closed again, just as fast. Rhea. "Mama, let us in." "Who is with you?" "The 3 people who didn't eat the stew." The face was silent for a long time, long enough that I thought perhaps she would say no. long enough that I began to consider what we would do if she said no. Then the plywood moved aside, and the hatch swung open, and Rhea slipped through, and Coralie after her. And the woman on the other side looked at me with the flat, searching gaze of a person who had been imagining me for a very long time. "You're the man who waved at the camera," she said. "I am." "My name is Aliska. Come in." I climbed through the hatch. Owen followed. Miriam came last. The space inside the loading dock was small and dark, illuminated by a single hooded lantern hanging from a hook in the ceiling. Aliska closed the hatch behind us and slid a bolt across it. Only then did she turn to face us fully. She was smaller than I had expected. In the apartment, from the evidence of her handwriting and her check marks and her cameras and her welded door, I had built her in my mind as a tall woman, broad, sturdy. She was none of those things. She was slight, with narrow shoulders, and her wrists in the lantern light looked as if a hard grip could break them. But she stood the way people who had been alone for a long time learned to stand, which was very still, and with her weight evenly distributed, and with her hands loose at her sides. "Rhea has told you about the register," she said. Was not a question. "Yes." "She has told you they are coming on Sunday?" "Yes." "She has asked you to convince me to leave." I looked at Rhea. Rhea was looking at the floor. "Yes," I said, "but I am not going to convince you of anything. I am going to tell you what I know and what I can do, and you are going to decide." Aliska tilted her head very slightly. "Go on." "I know that the register kills people who do not comply. I know that you cannot comply because you do not have enough to give them and keep your daughter alive. I know that your door will hold against a crowbar, but not against a torch, and that they will bring a torch on Sunday. I know that if you stay here, you will be dead by Monday, and Rhea and Coralie will be gone. I know that if you come with us, we cannot promise you safety, and we cannot promise you a home, and we can only promise you a night's walk out of this district before the sun comes up. That is not much to offer. It is what I have." She looked at me for a long time. Then she looked at Miriam. Miriam nodded once, very slightly. Then she looked at Owen, who was standing very straight because he did not know what else to do with himself. Then she looked at her daughter. "Rhea," she said, "have you packed your bag?" "Yes, Mama." "Coralie's too?" "Yes, Mama." "When?" "Last week." Aliska closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there was something in them that had not been there a moment before, and I understood, with a small twist under my ribs, that it was relief. "I have been waiting," she said quietly, "for someone to give me permission. We had 90 minutes before dawn." Aliska moved through the apartment with the calm precision of a woman who had been mentally packing this bag for weeks. And everything she took was already staged, already sorted, already sitting in a specific spot on a specific shelf. There was a green canvas duffel by the bed. There were 2 smaller packs by the front door, one labeled Rhea in the same slanted handwriting as the pantry cans, one labeled Coralie. There was a smaller pouch, dark leather, that Aliska took from a drawer in the kitchen and slipped into the inside pocket of her coat. And I did not ask what was in it, because a person is entitled to one bag no one asks about. She did not take the pantry. She took 8 cans, chosen by protein density, and a single jar of honey, and the sealed pouch of powdered milk that we had put back on the shelf on our way out the first time. She did not take the lantern. She did not take the cameras, though I saw her look up at each of them once as she passed under them. She did not take the calendar. When she came out of the bedroom for the last time, she stopped in front of the calendar, and she took the small pencil that hung from a string beside it, and she put a careful check mark in the square for today's date, though today had barely started. Then she let the pencil fall. The 2 bowls of stew were still on the table. She had not moved them. She looked at them for a long moment. "Would you eat them now?" she said. She did not say it to any one of us. She said it to the room. "No," I said. "Why not?" "Because they are not for us." She nodded slowly. That is the correct answer. Miriam had gone very quiet by the door. She had her pack shouldered already and her paring knife back at her belt. She was watching Aliska with something I could not quite read, an expression that looked a little like recognition, as if Aliska were a person she had once been, or almost been, or nearly become. "Aliska," Miriam said, "the register. Do they knock on every door in the building on the way up, or do they come straight to yours?" "Straight to mine," Aliska said. "The other apartments are empty. They know that. They have written it in their book." "How do they enter the district?" "Through the school on Bergen. They come south along 6th. They will not be here before 9. Their pattern has been consistent for 3 months." "Good," Miriam said. "Then we have time. But we do not go out the front. We go out the back, the way we came in. And we do not go north because Rhea says the register comes from the north. We go south, and then we cut east through the industrial park by the river. And we are out of this district before they know your door is unwelded." Aliska tilted her head. "You have thought about this?" "I have been thinking about this since your daughter knocked on our door." Aliska almost smiled. It was the first almost smile I had seen on her face, and it was gone very quickly, but it had been there. "There is one more thing," she said. She turned to me. "In the drawer under the coffee table. Would you get it, please?" I crossed the room. The coffee table was small, wooden, with a single narrow drawer. I opened it. Inside was a photograph, face down, in a folded piece of paper. Nothing else. "Bring the paper," Aliska said. "Leave the photograph." I brought the paper. I did not look at it. I gave it to her. She took it with both hands and held it for a moment. And then she folded it once more and put it in her coat, in the same inside pocket as the leather pouch. "What is it?" I said, before I could stop myself. "A letter my husband wrote to Rhea," Aliska said, "before he died. He wanted her to read it when she was 20. She is not 20 yet. But I do not think I'm going to be here when she is." I did not answer. I did not know what to answer. I stood beside her in the small apartment with the 2 bowls of cooling stew and the dark cameras and the labeled cans of tomatoes, and I felt, for a strange moment, as if I were part of a family I had not been invited to, but had somehow been included in by accident. "Time," Miriam said from the door. Aliska turned. She did not look back at the apartment. She walked out into the hallway, and Rhea followed her. And Coralie followed Rhea, and Owen followed Coralie. And I looked one last time at the 2 bowls of stew on the table, and I closed the door behind us with a small, final click. We went down the stairs together. 5 became 6, became a single moving thing in the dark. And I understood only after we had reached the 4th floor that I had not agreed to a night's walk. I had agreed to a family. We were 3 blocks south of the building when the first shot came. It was not close. It was 3, maybe 4 streets north of us. And it was a single crack, unmistakable. The flat report of a rifle, rather than the deeper cough of a shotgun. We all froze in the middle of the intersection. Rhea's hand went to her mother's wrist. Coralie made a small sound that she immediately swallowed. "That was north," Miriam said. "That was the register," Rhea said. Her voice had gone very thin. "They're early." "They're not early," Aliska said. She had not stopped walking. She was 2 steps ahead of us, and she had turned only her head, not her body. "They are exactly on time, just for a different door. Come." We came. We moved faster now, at the ragged jog that Miriam had drilled into me and Owen 100 times. The pace that a middle-aged person could sustain for 20 minutes with a full pack. Aliska kept up. She was smaller than I was and older than Miriam, and she kept up. And I did not know where she had trained her lungs, but I suspected the answer was in the small, bare apartment where she had made herself walk from wall to wall for an hour every day for 6 months. Because that was the kind of woman she was. We cut east at the corner of 6th and Holland. Rhea took us through a courtyard behind an office building, across a footbridge over a drainage canal, and into the edge of the industrial park. It had been an area of warehouses and small manufacturing plants. And now it was an area of warehouses and small manufacturing plants, with their doors broken open and their contents scattered. But it was empty of people, and it was empty of the infected, and we could move. We had covered perhaps a mile through the industrial park when we heard the truck. It came from the north, a diesel engine, running rough, the kind of sound that carried a very long way in a city without other sound. It was not on our street. It was 2 or 3 streets over, moving parallel to us, going the same direction we were going, but at 3 times our speed. "They are looking for us," Miriam said. "They are looking for someone," Rhea said. "It might not be us. They have other blocks." "They will have found the door," Aliska said quietly. "They will have entered the apartment. They will have seen the stew still on the table. They will know we left recently. They will guess the direction from the fire escape." "How can they guess the direction?" Owen said. His voice cracked. It was the first thing he had said in an hour. "Because I have been leaving stew for them too," Aliska said. She had stopped walking. She turned to face me. "I have been leaving stew for the register for 2 months. Small bowls, in the alley behind our building, once a week. I did it because I thought if I fed them, they would leave us alone. I did it because it was the only power I had. And when they come today and find the pantry gone and the fire escape open, they will know something has changed. And they will look for me. Not for you, for me. They know my routine. They know my routes to the drop points. They know I go south because south is where the alley opens." Miriam looked at her. There was no anger on her face. There was only a slow calculation. "You did not tell us this in the apartment," Miriam said. "I did not tell you because you would not have taken me if I had," Aliska said. She was very calm. Her hands at her sides were very still. "I am telling you now because we are far enough from the building that if you leave me here, I can walk into any door and hide alone, and you will have time to reach the river before they find me." "Mama," Rhea said. Her voice was small. Aliska did not look at her. She looked at me, and only at me, and she said, "You promised me a night's walk. I have had almost a night's walk. It is more than I have had in 8 months. I release you from the rest." I looked at Miriam. Miriam did not look at me. She was looking at Aliska. And then, very slowly, she was looking at Rhea, and then at Coralie, and then at Owen, and then at me. And I saw her face do a thing I had not seen it do in 142 days. I saw her decide to break her own rule twice in one night. "Aliska," Miriam said, "walk faster." "You do not have to," I know what I do not have to do, Miriam said. Walk faster. We walked faster. The truck's engine faded behind us. It was not gone. It was moving north again, perhaps toward a different street, perhaps toward a different building whose name was written in a book we would never read. Eliska walked at the front now, between Rhea and Coralie, and I saw Rhea's hand find her mother's, and I saw Eliska squeeze it back, and I saw Coralie, on the other side, put her free hand on Eliska's coat sleeve and grip a fold of the fabric like a child. We were almost at the river. The river was low and slow at this time of year, dark under the pre-dawn sky, and along its far bank the buildings gave way to a strip of trees and old rail lines, and beyond those, to the edge of the city. Miriam had told me once that the plan, if we ever got out, was to follow the rail line east until we found a small town, and to keep walking through small towns until we found one that had lost fewer people than it should have. I had never taken the plan seriously because I had never believed we would leave the city. Cities were where we had been trapped since the beginning. Cities were where we had learned to survive. To walk out of a city was to admit that the city was over, and I had not been ready to admit that. We reached the pedestrian bridge at the end of Van Street just as the sky above the eastern rooftops began to change from the dead gray of night to the paler gray of morning. The bridge was long and narrow and lined with rusted metal railings, and it swayed very slightly under our combined weight as we crossed. Below us, the river moved black and patient. Owen looked down at it once and looked away. Coralie did not look down at all. Halfway across the bridge, Eliska stopped. She stopped so suddenly that Rhea walked into her. Coralie caught them both by the elbow. Miriam, behind them, said, "What is it?" "Nothing," Eliska said. "Eliska, I need a moment." She stood at the middle of the bridge, and she turned, and she looked back at the city. From the middle of the bridge, at that hour, you could see the whole silhouette of it, the crooked skyline, the tallest towers still standing, the streetlights dead in their long, orderly rows. You could see the roof of her building on Kessler, 7 stories, dark as all the others now, indistinguishable from any of the buildings around it. She looked at it for a long time. I did not rush her. Miriam did not rush her. Even Rhea, who had been rushing her for 2 months, did not rush her. "I raised her there," Eliska said at last. Her voice was not sad. Her voice was matter-of-fact. From when she was 8, she learned to ride a bicycle in the courtyard. My husband built the pantry shelves. He picked the color of the paint in the bedroom. He died in the bathroom on the tile floor, and I could not carry him downstairs because I could not lift him. So I wrapped him in a sheet, and I closed the door, and I have not opened that door since April. Rhea made a soft sound. Eliska put a hand on her arm without looking at her. "When I go now," Eliska said, "I go without him. I want it said. I want you to hear me say it. I am going, and he is staying, and that is not a thing I ever thought I would do." "Mama," Rhea said. "I am done," Eliska said. She turned back to face east, toward the paler side of the sky. "I have said it. Let us walk." We walked. We walked to the end of the bridge and down a set of concrete steps to the towpath along the far bank. The towpath was cracked and overgrown, but it was walkable, and it ran east along the river and along the towpath. In the near distance was the beginning of the rail line, and beyond the rail line the city thinned into small houses, and beyond the small houses there was a road that went where roads went, which was somewhere else. Behind us, faintly, we heard the truck again. It was still on the other side of the river. It had not found us. It might not find us today, and it might not find us tomorrow. And if we were very lucky and very quiet and very small. It might not find us at all. Owen fell into step beside me. He had not spoken in a long time. He looked at me with an expression I could not read. And then he said, quietly, "Adrian, what are we now?" I thought about it. "We are 6 people," I said. "That's not what I mean." "I know. What do we call this?" I looked ahead. Aliska and Rhea and Coralie walked together in a small, tight bunch, 3 shapes moving as one. Miriam walked behind them, and her posture had eased in a way I had not seen in months. The sky was pink now at the horizon. The city behind us was still dark, but it was a darkness that had begun, at last, to have an edge. "I don't know yet," I said, "but we don't have to call it anything today." Owen nodded. He walked. The river slid past us on our right, and the rail line drew closer on our left. And somewhere behind us, in an apartment we would never see again, 2 bowls of stew had finally gone cold on a table set for 2. I still keep the green notebook. I write in it at night, as I promised. My true sentence for the day we crossed the river was this: I ate a bowl of soup that a stranger cooked for me, and I did not deserve it. And I ate it anyway. And that is how I became a person again. I wrote that 11 days later, in a farmhouse 30 miles east of the city, in a kitchen that had a working wood stove and a window that opened onto a field. Aliska cooked the soup. Rhea set the table. Coralie folded the napkins the same careful way her almost mother had taught her. Owen and Miriam sat across from me, and Miriam smiled, briefly, the way she used to smile before any of this. And I understood that some things do not end when they should end, and some things begin when they have no right to begin. And both of these are the same mercy, wearing different faces. I do not know what happened to the building on Kessler Avenue. I do not know if the register broke through the welded door and found the 2 bowls on the table and understood what they were seeing. I hope they did not. I hope they took the pantry and left the table alone. I hope some other traveler, some other night, opened the door to that apartment and found dinner still warm, and did not eat it, and was given, as I was given, permission to become someone worth the meal.